Hey Illidan, those last two Deathless videos went really well. Are you interested in doing a... Oh no. Hey, Arthas, are you interested in doing another Deathless video? Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the finale of the Warcraft 3 Deathless series. In addition to the normal rules, there's one clarification for this run. Using the Banshee's possession ability is not allowed. All the other rules are exactly the same as always, so let's get into it. The Scourge Campaign is without a doubt the hardest Deathless run I have ever done. While there's less things like randomly getting cheesed by stuns than Sentinel's campaign, the sheer difficulty of every mission means that I could not go in without precise plans. The first mission in most of my Deathless runs is pretty easy. King Arthas, on the other hand, is universally seen as one of the most difficult missions in Warcraft 3. The map is divided into 3 sections. I have a base in each of the 3 corners where human refugees can escape. If 20 get out, I lose. Refugees spawn from 9 villages around the map. Once the houses in each of the villages are destroyed, the refugees will no longer spawn there, meaning that once one of the thirds of the map are cleared of villages, that area will no longer be under threat. Kel'Thuzad's base in the top right is horrible. While the hero himself is incredible, he only has access to 2 units. The Ghoul, which is the weakest frontline combat unit in the game, and the Necromancer, whose combat potential comes from raising timed life summons. If the enemies were normal, Kel'Thuzad himself would probably be enough to defend, but they send Militia Commanders, an overpowered Knight variant who deals chaos damage, has a healing ability, an armor aura, and divine shield. Sylvanas' base is not much better. Unlike Arthas and Kel'Thuzad, who are level 10, Sylvanas is level 2. Normally her defense comes from the Banshee, a spellcaster who can sacrifice itself to mind control the enemy. Unfortunately for this run, I held a poll on whether possession is considered losing a unit, and the community overwhelmingly voted that yes, it is. The elite unit that attacks Sylvanas is the Militia Captain, a ranged attacker who deals massive damage, poisons the units he hits, and has a damage increasing aura, as well as a 20% chance to deal double damage with every attack. Normally Sylvanas' forces are intended to possess multiple of these captains to defend. Instead, I have to hide her in a corner and let people through. And finally is Arthas' base. He has abominations, which are actually really good. In addition to being high damage, high durability bruisers, they can use the Cannibalize ability to heal themselves up between fights. I don't have to babysit this side at all. Connecting the 3 areas is a crossroads, with a powerful human fortification including 3 paladins. Whenever a village is attacked, one of these paladins will teleport in to reinforce, bringing troops with him. While I don't have to kill the paladins, I do have to kill the altars that will resurrect them in order to win. With all this in mind, my plan is to take the mission one area at a time. As I begin, I grab Arthas and send him to the nearby shop, grabbing him a Boots of Speed, a Scroll of Speed, and a Potion of Invulnerability. Each of my heroes has 3 goblin landmines to work with. Kel'Thuzad heads to the north and drops 3 mines in a village that has all of their houses clumped very close to each other. Once a villager spawns, the mines will detonate, taking out all of the houses with it. I do the same on Sylvanas' side with her mines. Arthas uses a Scroll of Speed to charge through the Alliance base in the middle, laying his 3 mines in another cluster of houses on Kel'Thuzad's side, leaving a single village for the pair to demolish. These houses are more spread out, so I couldn't landmine them. Instead, I bring in Kel'Thuzad and use his ultimate, Death and Decay. Arthas is able to keep the heat off of the Lich long enough, and in the first few minutes of the mission, the most vulnerable area can no longer be attacked. Now to head down to Sylvanas. For the 5th village, I use my remaining 2 landmines to take it out easily. In order to keep Sylvanas' side safe, I put her in the front, utilizing her Drain Life ability to sustain her through the high damage enemies without risking my Banshees. If I had to stall much longer, she would end up getting overwhelmed, but this works for long enough that my blitz strategy can pull through. Once the boys have cleared 2 villages, Sylvanas' mines detonated on the 3rd, and there's only 1 area remaining. I take my time here. The abominations are looking great and nothing else is a threat. Unfortunately, Sylvanas cannot come with the other heroes because a level 2 can't make it through the middle base alive. For the final 3 villages, I use the tried and true Death and Decay plus Heal strategy. The 2.5 minute cooldown makes the process slow, but it's reliable. All that remains are killing the 3 altars in the main base. There are too many forces to keep Kel'Thuzad alive while channeling. This is what I thought, until I found this nook at the south where only a couple enemies can hit him at a time. I decay the altar, and the game fades to black with my 2 heroes in a not at all precarious position. Thankfully, in between the insanity of macro missions in this campaign comes a few freebies. The flight from Lordaeron is almost a free win, but with a couple hiccups. The first being rescuing this necromancer. He's AI controlled and runs over to me, gets recruited, and almost immediately summons Time Life skeletons. After 4 or 5 resets, I managed to grab both of them and stop them from summoning. This was a very unexpected first roadblock. The mission is a very long no-build mission where I rescue allies over time, ending up with about 2 control groups worth of units. Taking things slow and steady is king here. As long as I take every engagement at high health, there's nothing to worry about. It's worth noting that Arthas is level 8 here. The Scourge Campaign has a unique mechanic, where instead of leveling up a hero from 1 to 10, Arthas starts at level 10 and loses power throughout the campaign. Unfortunately, I can't pick what abilities Arthas loses when his level goes down, which leaves me with the useless Death Pact instead of keeping Death Coil's power up. After about an hour of trudging through the labyrinthian map, I reach the final boss fight. There's an elite abomination named Bloodfeast with 3000 HP, partnered with a level 7 Dreadlord, as well as their escorts. And a fun fact about Warcraft 3 is that siege weapons can use the attack ground command to shoot areas where they don't have vision. And all of the enemies behind this wall are melee, making this the least exciting boss fight ever. At this point, the story splits, with one set of missions following Sylvanas and another following Arthas. All 3 of Sylvanas' missions are absurd. Each of them easily lands in the top 10 most difficult Deathless missions I've ever done. The first is the Dark Lady. Normally, this mission is easy and awesome. When a Banshee uses possession on a tribe's leader, the entire tribe falls under the player's command. The tribes can then be used to slaughter Varimathras' base. Varimathras himself attacks early and often, with big armies of well-upgraded units. Of course, each of these are also possessable, normally giving Sylvanas a huge spike in army power any time that he delivers more forces. To make things more fair, Sylvanas loses a majority of the undead tech tree, only being able to train ghouls, meat wagons, banshees, and the healing obsidian statue. Because possession is illegal, I'm fighting against one of the most aggressive enemies in the game, using a tech tree where every good unit was removed. Great. After practicing and experimenting a lot, I found out a couple points about the mission. First is that Varimathras joins every red attack wave, and he hurts. Varimathras is bulky, can disable my units with sleep, and throws out a ton of area damage with Carrion Swarm. I need an answer to him. And second is that the only viable unit is the meat wagon. Nothing else I have can actually fight the enemy. My first priority is Varimathras. I can't allow him to spearhead the enemy attacks repeatedly. This is where my experience as a Deathless runner kicks in. If you've seen Legacy of the Void Deathless, you might find this strategy familiar. As the Dreadlord attacks, I use a meat wagon to pull him into this alcove I created. An Acolyte then constructs a ziggurat on the exit, and Sylvanas uses Scroll of Town portal to pull my forces out of the trap. Welcome to Varimathras in a box. Now all I have to do is repair whichever building he's hitting. This came with an unexpected upside. The way that the AI works in Warcraft is that as they are moving their forces around, they occasionally stop and rally around a hero. This stops fast units from running ahead and slow units from falling behind. Because Varimathras is in every red attack wave, but he's in my base, the red attacks now charge at top speed towards me instead of regrouping. This conga line is many times easier to deal with than the actual attack waves. This doesn't solve all of my issues though. Both the purple and red bases still strike quickly, and my gold mine is running out. Instead of expanding to a new base and being forced to defend 2 points at once, I decide to take a risk. After clearing an attack, I move everything I own, including Acolytes, to northwest of the red base that I have to destroy to win the mission. I build an Acropolis and then go. The red and purple both send attack waves against my empty base. It will take them time to clear out the buildings. I use this time to engage the enemy, killing as many of the pre-placed defenders and production structures as I can. After my base is eliminated, Varimathras returns to defend. I quickly construct a wall of ziggurats between his forces and my meat wagons, leaving a small opening choke point. Varimathras tries to force his way through, taking massive losses from the meat wagon's splash damage, cleaning up his main force. Then Sylvanas hits level 6. Many of the ultimates in Warcraft 3 are completely useless in a Deathless run, but Sylvanas has Charm. It's identical to the Banshee's possession ability, but does not require me to sacrifice a unit. As I dive Varimathras' altar to prevent him from respawning, Sylvanas can now permanently mind control an enemy abomination every 45 seconds. Once the altar falls, the remaining cleanup is simple. I don't know why the purple base decided to never act after I lost my main base, but it's fair to say that I would never have beaten this mission if they decided to do anything at any point. Going back to Arthas, the return to Northrend is a 2-part mission that's pretty fun. First I get some boats to make an amphibious landing against a Blood Elf outpost. After it's clear, I get a base of my own and must clear through a massive Blood Elf base, a massive Naga base, and a bunch of spiders and dragons. There's no way that I'm fighting the Naga ever again. Instead of fully clearing the Blood Elf outpost, I leave a couple farms alive. As long as I don't finish part 1 of the mission, I never get a base and the enemy AI never activates. Instead, I head north. There's a bonus quest in this mission, and it's really cool. Inside of this dragon den are multiple high-level enemy dragons. Clearing them out is slow, but I have all the time in the world. Once I reach the end, I fight the elite dragon Sapphiron, using the Crit Fiend's web ability to ground the dragons, and carefully managing damage with Burrow. Sapphiron and his guards are taken out. After the fight, Arthas raises Sapphiron into an elite Frostwyrm. He is one of the most powerful non-hero units in the game, and most importantly, he flies. I grab Sapphiron, send him across the ocean, and into the final cave, past the Blood Elf and Naga bases. Making sure to hug the edges and using the high ground to deny enemy spiders' vision, I creep Sapphiron towards the end of the mission. There are a few level 6 drakes that hurt pretty bad, but Sapphiron can clear them out. To end the mission, a pack of grounded dragonkin have to be eliminated, and none of them can attack air. I kill all but one of the dragonkin, and then I finish off the Blood Elf outpost and get my base. I might be done with this mission, but I need to prepare for the future. I make a Tomb of Relics, the undead specialized shop, and purchase a Scroll of Town portal, some consumables for good measure, and command Sapphiron to finish off the mission. Going back to finish up Sylvanas' storyline is Dreadlord's Fall. This mission is ridiculous. It starts with an 8-minute sneak attack against enemy forces. The enemy bases take up about 60% of the map. I need to cripple them here if I want to make any progress. The human enemies are to the left and the undead are to the right. After a couple attempts, I was able to find a route that was able to destroy all of the human production structures, town halls, and peasants, leaving them effectively worthless. The overpowered knight hero Lord Garithos guards the center of the human base, but I found that he can be baited out by Varamothros, put to sleep, and then he'll stay in his corner after that. During the attack, Sylvanas is using her charm ability predominantly on mortar teams for their building kill speed, the exception being this one peasant. Back at my base, I'm building a huge number of static defense structures. Once the sneak attack ends, I bolt home. The enemy sends every combat unit on the map and sends it to my base, including the elite Dreadlord Deathrock and Lord Garithos. The onslaught is brutal. It takes me multiple full resets to get everything right, including building positioning and charming the right units so I could defend. But eventually, I'm able to break the wave of undead without a loss. With 2 undead bases remaining, I then have to figure out how to win. Deathrock's forces are impossible to engage. He constantly stays near or at max supply, loves attacking, and is a powerhouse himself. Figuring out how to engage him is tough. Sylvanas' units just aren't enough. Even with charming multiple Frostwyrms, her weird half-faction can't bring enough of a punch without the rest of the undead tech tree. Using the peasant that I stole, I tech up to mass Griffins, the highest tier human unit, and had no success. After some more flailing and failing, someone in my chat had a bold idea and I was desperate enough to try it. The Siege Engine is a weird unit. It has a huge health pool, a ton of armor, and dishes out absurd damage. However, it can only attack buildings. It also has the Fortified Armor type, which with this weird exception is exclusively reserved for buildings. It's an up-close and personal siege weapon that can't actually fight the opponent's army. I make 17 of them. Deathrock's first base is no simple outpost. It's as well defended as many of the game's best strongholds, and the siege tanks melt through it. Whenever one takes critical damage, I pull it out of the fight and repair it. My 2 heroes slowly and steadily beat the non-heroic enemies who aren't that intimidating when they're lacking the ability to be rebuilt. The final base is still too much to handle. I can't win with Deathrock defending. So I pull everything out of my main base, wait for Deathrock to attack me, and beat the second of the Dreadlord brothers while they're not home. Only one Dreadlord brother remains, and he's even more overpowered than the first 2. It's time for a new power in Lordaeron, and I'm gonna need a great plan to beat the final Dreadlord, Balthazar. I spawn with 2 bases, an undead in the top left commanded by Sylvanas, and a human in the bottom right commanded by Lord Garithos. I buy Sylvanas a Scroll of Town portal and send my undead heroes over to the human base. The mission is simple. The center contains the most well-defended base in Warcraft 3, and I have to destroy it. My forces are split up. The other undead around the map will attack me in addition to the main base's pushes. These attacks quickly become overwhelming. I have to end this mission as early as possible. I build a massive defensive structures on the undead side to keep them safe, while popping up some barracks for the humans. Shortly after the mission begins, the bonus quest activates. Garithos is a racist just like Sylvanas is, so he only allows humans into his faction. But this time he brought some dwarves for the fight, and then they got lost. If I rescue them, I get to keep them as well as build dwarven units. Garithos is a chonker. I ride him past the kobolds guarding the dwarves and rescue them immediately, and then use them to clear the way back home, grabbing some riflemen in cages along the way. I start pumping riflemen until I max out. The reason that I opted for riflemen has to do with upgrades. The AI starts the mission with 0 armor and attack upgrades, and then slowly unlocks them over time, increasing the power of their units in a way that the player can keep up with. These dwarven units, for whatever reason, start with +3 attack and armor upgrades. This means that if I rush, I can strike the enemy with a maxed out 3-3 timing while they're stuck on 0-0. But I can't go yet. Balnazzar is an oppressively strong hero, and while he isn't Magtheridon or Archimonde levels of strong, my heroes are significantly worse than in the other campaigns. He only has 2 abilities to worry about: Finger of Death, which deals huge damage to a non-heroic unit, and Reign of Chaos, which summons multiple Infernals. Either is enough to cause a reset. Fortunately for me, Balnazzar has one weakness. This man loves his evening walks. I catch the Dreadlord strolling through the park, hit him with Sylvanas' silence ability, and then silence him for good. And then I go. I have to breach the base before he respawns. Breaking through is tough. My units are clumped and the enemy have Doom Guards, a powerful demon with a bunch of area damage abilities, in addition to Infernals, Frost Wyrms, and the typical undead defenses. While I push through the choke, I send my siege engines on a mission to demolish the altar in the north. And then I push up to the demon gate that warps in Infernals and Doom Guards, taking it down as well. At this point, it's a free win. The enemy can only rally meager defenses, and Balnazzar has a second altar at the bottom of the base. He respawns and kills me. In my next attempt, I kill the north altar with the tanks, clear south, find and eliminate the second altar, and then push my way up before they can rebuild an altar and revive Balnazzar. And with that, the Trinity of Dreadlords have been beaten without ever allowing them to take part in any legitimate engagement. These missions were insanely difficult to figure out. Between studying, practicing, theorizing, and executing these missions, the 3 of them took me over 15 hours. There are 2 more missions to finish out of Arthas' questline before I can officially say that Warcraft 3 can be done deathless. Thankfully, Mission 7 is a series of 3 no-build missions back-to-back, and they're all pretty easy. Into the Shadowweb Caverns is the easiest. There are spiders and angry dwarves. The starting force I have is all I get, and it's more than enough to clear to the final boss room. The level 10 Mountain King Bailgun might have been an issue if there was not a Fountain of Restoration right next to the boss area. Most of the Forgotten ones is the same. I rescue Crypt Fiends, add them to my army, get stuck in a crab trap, and kill spiders. At the end is a hallway of wacky inflatable arm flailing tube tentacles, and then a boss fight. The fight against the Forgotten one is disappointing. He's supposed to do stuff like use spells and abilities or something, but this is Warcraft Reforged. He just doesn't do that. He auto-attacks, and summons the occasional monster to kill, but that's it. I was honestly looking forward to this encounter as me pulling out all the micro-stops for an incredible showdown against an old god, but instead I was left disappointed. To finish things off, the Ascent to the Upper Kingdom is a mission where I control only Arthas, and if he dies, I lose, so I play the mission normally. The most exciting thing that happened is that I got stuck on this stupid puzzle that isn't actually a puzzle but instead completely random platform movements. At the end, I get an escort of Crypt Fiends to fight my way to the exit, and then have an actual boss battle. Sort of. The fight isn't hard, but I got stuck on the floating floor puzzle for so long that I'm running out of time. After losing to time twice, I figure out the fight well enough to take it quickly and head on to the final mission of Warcraft 3. A Symphony of Frost and Flame is the endgame. The entire map is covered in Naga and Blood Elves, led by Illidan, Vashj, and Kael'thas. The objective is to control 4 obelisks simultaneously. Both Illidan and Arthas spend half a minute channeling at an obelisk to claim it. When they complete the channel, the opposing faction's buildings take 500 damage. A quick side note, this damage trigger actually existed in the original Warcraft 3, but it was broken. This is one of the few things that Reforged actually fixed properly, so that's neat. On hard, the enemy AI easily repairs through the damage with their infinite money, while a couple activations will level my entire base. I can't let the enemy claim them. When channeling at the obelisks, Arthas takes drastically increased damage. Naga have the power to kill him in seconds. The Blood Elf forces are not particularly threatening, but this is the strongest Naga attack force in the game. Coatls, Royal Guards, Vosh, and Illidan himself are too much to engage head-on. Instead of fighting the nearby Naga base to claim it, I plop down an Acropolis to start, grab my entire army, and head to the first obelisk. The core of my army eliminates creeps, while Arthas quickly dashes from one obelisk to another. The northern obelisk is claimed by Illidan, he defends it with Royal Guards and builds a base around it, but the remaining 3 are only guarded by some creeps for now. After claiming the third obelisk, I move Arthas up and wait for Illidan to move towards the right objective. If I control 3 obelisks and start channeling even 1 second earlier than Illidan does, I will control all 4 for a brief enough time that I will end the game with a victory. But how do I channel for 30 seconds at an altar that's so well guarded when Arthas takes extra damage? This base is far too strong for my army to break with Arthas, let alone without him. The answer is that I don't. I channel somewhere else. The way that the activation sequence works is that once Arthas touches the circle, he's teleported into the center of it, given a damage taken debuff, and has the ability to use items and abilities taken away. But I found a trick. If you activate a Scroll of Town portal on the exact frame that Arthas steps onto the objective, it will start the countdown, Arthas will begin channeling, and then he'll teleport to the main base while still channeling. But hitting a frame-perfect trick is pretty hard, particularly in such an old game that runs at hundreds of FPS. But in the weirdest twist of fate, for some reason unknown to anyone, Blizzard added an FPS slider bar to Reforged that can drop the game to as low as you want. I can't believe that anyone besides me has actively wanted to cap their game at an incredibly low FPS, so I will thank Blizzard for personally adding this feature for me. I set the slider to 20 FPS, low enough to easily hit the trick, but fast enough that the game isn't unplayably choppy. Send Arthas in, hit the scroll, and teleport home. As I wait for the 30-second countdown to conclude and the mission to end, I can't help but think one thing: that it is in fact possible to beat Warcraft 3 and the Frozen Throne on hard without losing a unit.